Doesn't matter. It does on the side. So it's mine. There's nothing. Yeah. Yeah.
And we're on.
Now we're rolling.
All right. December 13th, 2021, amended meeting notice has been posted. The agenda is out there and the media has been notified. Please call roll.
Christopher Frederickson,
Here.
Thomas Barnett,
Here.
Andrew Larson,
Here.
Carrie Michalowski,
Here.
Thomas Kelly,
Here.
Gerald Anderson,
Here.
David Holt,
Here.
Eileen Daniel,
Here.
Ryan Rossing.
Here. All please stand. First of all, in your packet, the first piece of flyer that got handed out was Northwoods Tobacco Free Coalition. And it's in your packet. It's too long to read in 2 minutes, so I told her that it would be handed out and it'll be a part of the record. So that's where that sits. Public comments received by the mayor, the clerk, or the council. We're going to start with a list here. Matt Adams. Please state where you're from.
Hello, I'm Matt Adams. I am the manager of Still Smoking here in Rhinelander. I just had a couple of things to reiterate from the board meeting about 4 weeks ago. As far as our Delta 8 issue that we have going on, my sales since the ban of these products in the city limits, my sales have reduced a minimum of 65%. After reading through what will be the next ordinance read about this subject, I see that in this new ordinance there is an age restriction of 21 or over to possess to sell the Delta 8 to the individual. The only problem I see with that is that opens the door for any individual to open a business outside city limits and sell their product at 18. Essentially running me out of business. I also have several customers that have come into my store looking to get their product and can't get it from me. And a couple of these individuals, when they walk out the door, their heads down, they're sad. They got to go back to their doctor and get their narcotics. It's really, really sad to watch. The only other issue I had today, I did notice that I looked for the articles, I looked for the board meetings. The board meetings and all of that is listed in the River News, which is a paid-for paper. I do not get that paper. My establishment doesn't get that paper. I just would like to put that out there that it would be nice if it was in the Star Journal that is sent to almost everybody. Thank you.
Kim it looks like McBee and then McBay. Okay, Kim McBay.
I just want to say that I,
Please state your name
sorry.
again and then where you're from.
my name is Ken McBay, and I'm from Rhinelander, Wisconsin. Is that it? Okay, I just want to say that I have glaucoma, and I brought proof from my doctor, from my eye doctor, and the CBD it helps. For years, cannabis has been a medication for glaucoma, but the CBD it works. The eye drops that I get hurt my eyes, and I don't like doing the eye drops. They sting, they hurt my eyes, make my eyes feel like there's something wrong. But the CBD, it really works for me, and so it's something that I wish could be a medication, but I can get the CBD, and my eyes feel a lot better with that. That's basically all I want to say.
Thank you. Bill Freudenberg.
Bill Freudenberg, 323 Marshall Street in the city of Rhinelander. I'd like to talk to you tonight about the resolution of number 2021-33 about the non-working resolution, including involving the 3 deputy fire chiefs here in the city. I've been living up here for 40 years now. I served on council for 2 terms. I was a big supporter of EMS services back then, still am right now. I really encourage you to remove this language from this resolution. These 3 deputy fire chiefs belong in the union. You're perceived tonight to remove the position of assistant fire chief, which is another crucial move in itself. So I really encourage you to remove this language tonight. If you do not at least vote no for it. You don't realize what kind of a fire department you have here, what kind of guys you have here protecting this community. I really wonder if any one of you really has gone down to that fire department and talked to them and know who they are and what they do in this community. Thank you very much.
Luke Drummond.
Luke Drummond. I live at 777 West Davenport Street. I'm also the union president for the firefighters. Thank you for those of you who did speak to me over the last few days. I reached out to all of you in some way, shape, or form. If you guys didn't see my emails, they're there. It explains the resolution better than I'm going to in 2 minutes, I think. But beyond that, I'm frustrated with I guess the transparency from Zach. This is the second time he's tried to fool you guys. Out of the 5 of you I've spoken to, all 5 of you said that you didn't mean to vote the assistant chief away. That's a majority. Bring it back. With this resolution, everyone I've spoken to says that you wouldn't have been aware of it. It's not transparent. I think you guys have come a long way. I appreciate the efforts from you guys to come this way, but this needs to be addressed, and I think it would be best for you guys to sit down together, have that conversation, as opposed to have it kind of slipped through with a line item hidden within a larger resolution. So thank you guys, I appreciate it.
Dan Orndorfer.
Hi there, my name is Dan Arndorfer. I live here in the city of Rhinelander, 406 Hillside. And I'm here to address the issue on Resolution 2021-33. Once again, also about the removal of the deputy chiefs from the union post. I think for me, from what I get from talking to the firefighters I've dealt with and spent time with, is the lack of transparency is sickening. Once again, I once again don't know if you guys realize what you have here. I am an emergency nurse. I am also a past firefighter, paramedic myself. When I went to become a firefighter, I was in a group of hundreds of qualified applicants who are looking for full-time firefighter jobs. Nowadays, you're lucky to find a handful. As an ER nurse, and I have worked with these guys for years, I would trust every single one of the Rhinelander firefighters with my life. Hands down, not an ounce of hesitation. And the real big thing for me is I would trust the lives of my kids in their hands. The people you are attacking by taking out of the union without properly discussing this with them, these aren't the rookies. These aren't the brand new people who just got on the department. This is your experience. These are the people who have put years into this department and their hearts into this city. Working in healthcare right now, I don't know if anyone here does, it sucks. 97% of the ICU beds in the state of Wisconsin are currently full. 96% of the SCU IMC level beds are full. RER houses patients for days. We've watched people die. It is a horrible environment. And the part that bothers me, the lack of transparency, is we're getting hit from every different direction. They don't need it from you. You are their leaders. We elected you to lead us. It's embarrassing. I hope you don't live in this city if you're going to continue to do this thing. My fear is this could go on to the Rhinelander PD, to the street department. The other things could be slipped in that could cause negative effects on the people who do real work in this city. Boots on the ground. Please, if you're going to do something like this, talk to them. Be transparent. Have a plan. And if you live in this city, be embarrassed. And if it doesn't bother you, go home and tell your family, guess what? I just put a number on your lives. These are professionals. These aren't people who have other jobs who also come up and do firefighting. These are firefighter paramedics. These men and women serve this community and deserve our respect. As elected officials, I elected you to take care of us citizens. Please do so. Thank you.
Dan Bauer.
Good evening. My name is Dan Bauer. I've been a deputy chief with the Rhinelander Fire Department for the last 5 years and been employed with the city for 16. I'm here to express my concerns regarding the resolution number 2021-33, non-working resolution for 2022. In the city's ordinance in multiple sections, the city's mission statement reads, "Open, transparent government leads to better informed citizens, which leads to better government and better public policy." In the resolution for non-working employees, I see there is a line item to include the fire deputy chiefs. We are currently members of the union. Here are some of the concerns I have with the deputy chiefs being added to the non-working resolution. The deputy chiefs have only heard one reason as to why this must happen. The one time Zach met with us, he told us it was the law, so he was doing it. If it is the law and must be done, shouldn't it have been done when the new organizational chart was approved to remove the assistant chief? If the intentions are good and it must be done, why try and hide it in a resolution? Wouldn't it be best to have it in a separate line item on the council agenda so it can be discussed? We have been given no reason to think that he has good intentions. He stated when the organizational chart was approved that it was just what we currently had in place at the fire department, not that the assistant chief was permanently removed. Since then, every time that position is brought up, he states it's dead in the water and not coming back. If you go back to the 3P meeting in February of 2009, the proposal that was approved was to have the assistant chief move to days to oversee the operations of the ambulance service. Our call volume continues to increase. Now is not the time to eliminate positions. The resolution for the fire deputy chief is incomplete. The wage for that position is marked to be determined for 2022, and the benefits that are listed on the 40-hour work week. We currently work a 56-hour work week. It would be irresponsible, in my opinion, to vote on something that is this incomplete. Thank you for your time.
Josh Schmitz.
Good evening. My name is Josh Schmitz. I'm a 20-plus year firefighter for the city of Rhinelander Fire Department. I've also been a deputy chief since 2012, and I'm very dedicated to my role at the Rhinelander Fire Department. The fire department and I have had extremely strenuous year due to the city administrator's actions. Our year started out with the retirement of the Rhinelander fire chief. The administrator stated we could not hire the next chief until all benefits expired for the retired chief. If that is the administrator's stance, then why was the finance assistant job filled many months before the retirement of the current finance assistant? This is a big double standard. The decision made the assistant chief responsible for being the chief, the assistant chief, the zoning administrator, and the building inspector. That's a lot of hats and way too much responsibility for one person. When the assistant chief asked the administrator for some help, he refused, forcing the assistant chief to retire and leaving the city of Rhinelander with no fire chief, no assistant chief, no zoning administrator, and no building inspector. The city had to hire a building inspector and a third-party contractor just to handle the building inspection duties. Also, without having a chief and an assistant chief, the administrator put the fire department and the city in serious risk. The Police and Fire Commission had to act quickly to resolve the dilemma created by the administrator. They appointed me to the interim fire chief position. I had many reservations about filling that role, but with the support of our department, I knew I could get the job done. However, it did not take long for the administrator to make the transition difficult. My first obstacle was negotiating with the administrator. He wanted me to take an $833 biweekly pay cut while I was the interim chief. Then he also wanted to remove all but 2 weeks of my accrued vacation time. Luckily at the time, we had a great human resources manager that resolved the unfair offer. Unfortunately, that HR manager quit because of poor working environment. At my first council meeting, I got blindsided by the administrator. Actually, we all got blindsided. The administrator added a last-minute addition to the council meeting that was only available to council members. That paperwork cut the assistant fire chief position. The administrator then sold the idea that this was just the current state of the city of Rhinelander, and when that position is hired and filled, it would be put back on the workflow chart. What a lie. Myself, the current fire chief, and most of the members of the Rhinelander Fire Department were told directly by the administrator that the assistant chief was not returning. Tonight, the administrator is setting us up for his next lie. He's going to tell you that the deputy chief must be removed from the union. He will state that the state law requires it. The administrator is wrong, and it's just another lie. Nothing in the state law states that this must be done, and the way that the administrator is trying to accomplish this is also very devious and is definitely not transparent. The administrator is trying to hide the deputy chief position in a non-union working resolution tonight. So by voting in favor of resolution 2021-33, you will be removing the deputy chief from the position from the union. If this was state law, the administrator would not have to hide this in a resolution. Taking the deputy chiefs out of the union is a horrible decision. The fire department relies heavily on off-duty firefighters to be called in for many emergency situations. Deputy chiefs will no longer be able to respond off-duty, thus limiting the number of firefighters available for all calls. The fire chief does not support this move and is not in the best interest of the department or the city. What I've seen since Mr. Verwick has been the administrator is major targeting of the fire department and public safety. He's even targeting the new fire chief. Just look at the chief wages for 21 and 22. No change, but the hired human resource manager is getting a 2.5% raise. Look suspicious? Last Friday, the administrator told you all that you were not supposed to speak with members of the fire department. Why can't we talk to alderpersons about council business? The administrator also told the current HR manager not to speak with RFD members. The HR manager was informed that this is illegal to deny access to HR. But when the HR meeting did take place, the administrator burst into the private meeting, thus denying access to HR. If the administrator were being honest about his proposal, he wouldn't prevent discussion. Is the administrator afraid of you all becoming informed of what the issues are at hand? Please ask yourself, why isn't the city administrator using integrity and transparency to make such big changes to the fire department? He is slowly trying to dismantle the public safety of this great community, and we can't let it happen. We must invest in our community, the fire department, and public safety if we want this city to prosper and grow. So I'm asking alderpersons Daniel, Anderson, Michalowski, Barnett, Larson, Kelly, Holt, Rossing, and Mayor Frederickson, I'm asking you to reject resolution 2021-33 and tell Administrator Verwick that the city of Rhinelander needs their fire department, and we all depend on the public safety it provides.
Ryan Berghammer.
My name is Ryan Berghammer. Live in 127 North Palm Street. Not only a city resident, I'm a city employee. Born here, graduated here, raising my family here. I'm here for the long term. I think that's a fact. I also want you to really look at this resolution like everybody before me has spoken. I won't get into some of their details. One thing I do want to bring up is the way it was described to us is it's by law. What was provided to us is under Chapter 111.70 in Wisconsin state statutes. That is only a definition of what a supervisor is. And we were told that supervisors cannot be in the bargaining unit. I can read it to you. As to fire, we'll go right into our situation. Municipalities, where there is but one fire station, the term supervisor shall include only the fire chief and the officer, unless that's singular, in rank immediately below the fire chief. No other firefighter shall be included under the term supervisor for the purposes of this subchapter. This leaves a lot, it's a definition, so this leaves a lot of room for interpretation on who needs to be included or not included. I did look under municipalities, and nowhere does it say there has to be 2 supervisors or multiple. So I think this needs to really be addressed. I look at this city of Rhinelander as kind of a body. You guys as council, somewhat of the brains of the whole operation. I'm going to give Mayor the credit of having the heart behind this because a lot of his drive. All of our departments heads are critical parts of the body, right on out to the employees, kind of being the extremities. You start not taking care of your extremities, you don't have a functioning body. If you cut them off, you become disabled. The city is heading in a very good direction. There is, to the administrator's credit, there are some good plans ahead, some grants in place, some parks. But if we do not have the employees in this city, qualified people that want to be here, that's going to fall apart in the future. I don't want to see that. I don't want my kids to know what we had or what we could have had. I want them to have it. So we need to keep qualified candidates retained in this city. I think we're seeing that we have to increase wages to get people to sign on. What about taking care of the people that are already here? Thank you.
Al. Jeswiak. Al.
Well, there's certainly a lot of topics here that I wasn't aware of, but I'm going to speak a little on the topic that I'm hearing in front of me with the fire department because I needed those services about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they performed very admirably, and I wasn't in a position to have anyone else help me, and family members were there, but when no one's there that's qualified to help you or to get you to the hospital, it was a very vital, important thing for me. So I'm not certain all the topics here, but I'm here to say that they performed very professionally, and I was very happy to have them here. The real reason that I came tonight, I gave, or actually Ryan put a document in front of everyone here today regarding the Heel Creek donation from Dr. Lee Swank. These are just contingencies that are in the best interest of the community to make sure that that is within our community for generations to come, not for it to be sold whenever the city needs money or whatever could possibly happen 40 years from now. So that document is there. Lee Swank has a copy of that document. Zach has a copy of it, and I believe Ryan has a copy of it before the rest of you guys received it tonight. And the other topic here that I believe is going to come up is the skate park. And I think I've spoke on that several times where this city needs one. There's a lot of underserved youth that maybe don't fit into the mold of baseball and football. And to be very honest with you, I was one of those kids. And for that not to be here, I mean, that's a pretty simple project. I realize there was a young group that the last council meeting that I was here, there was 3 young men that came in. One of those guys wrote a letter to Tony Hawk Foundation. A week or 2 later, the Tony Hawk Foundation called me just because they referenced my name, and I just told them what they needed to do in order to make this happen. The Tony Hawk Foundation will give the city money. All you got to do is really accept the money, and they have to. The only other thing they actually need to have is a 401c to actually, to request the money. I would assume that Hodag BMX possibly could do this as a representative of them. I don't think that the skate park committee has that status, so they can't actually apply for the grant. The city could accept it, the money's there. They just really need that key component. And I hope that everyone in this council realizes
just to make
it's
people
important
aware
for
real
that.
quick at this time, Art Start will house that funding also
right.
with theirs.
Thank you.
Just a FYI as we look to put donations. Art Start is volunteered to house that funding. All right. Lene Newman. Is that correct?
Close enough. My father never got it right either. I'm also here. I'm Linnea Newman. I'm a Rhinelander resident, and I'm here to support Rhinelander's youth, some of whom are standing behind me, and their efforts to get a skate park in Rhinelander. We know it's not impossible. Even though the last time I was here, it was for a dog park, it only took us 10 years to get that. So I think we've learned the steps. I obviously am not going to be using the skate park. Well, maybe not obviously, I don't know which thing. I myself am not going to be using the skate park, but when my son was a teenager, he fell in love with skateboarding. He had cousins in Milwaukee, and he thought it was just the neatest thing. He was a shy kid, he didn't talk much. But when he got wheels under his feet, he was alive. He got skateboarding shoes, he got a skateboard, and then every place that had a solid strip of concrete had a posted no skateboarding signs. And he was a good kid. He did not want to break the rules, so he never skateboarded. He graduated high school at 17 and left town. He's back with 2 kids, the oldest of whom is 4. And I don't know if he's going to be a skateboarder, but I know he deserves a chance to try, as do all of the youth that are existing right now who love the sport. Tell us what we need to do. If we need a 501(c), we'll get it. If we need funding, we'll get it. If you need labor, we're all there. So I have a lot better voices behind me that want to speak to their urges for the skate park too. So I'll defer to them.
Anthony, I don't know if that's a G or F. Fiducio.
Close enough, thank you.
Thank you.
Before I begin, I want to thank those who have spoken before me about the topic of the skate park. That was actually honestly touching. But hello, respected alderpersons and Mayor of Rhinelander. My name is Anthony Gaudioso, and I am also a resident of Rhinelander. As one of the originating members of our lovely group, Over It, it's undergone a couple of name changes, but that's the one we're sticking with now. I can say that to describe our mission as setting out to build a skate park would be absurdly understating our purpose. I feel I speak for every one of us when I say that we are people of a very strongly connected community, believing that it is by no means just us that need to be heard. This world can be terrifyingly daunting. We feel that there are many ways our city can improve, particularly by having more inclusive spaces for people, especially at-risk youth, to come together, share, and connect. All this being said, as I prepared a speech to give tonight, it is hard for me to put into words why we need to build a skate park. Frankly, it is scary and nerve-wracking to reach out, as all of this comes from deep, deep within my heart. These fears are akin to the fears I have when facing day-to-day life, standing up against my own problems and the challenges of the world. In the same regard, however, there's something I find infinitely more scary. As scary as it is to be naked, to work against these very challenges and prevent the suffering caused by being buried by said challenges of life, it is utterly terrifying to me to think of what is possible when we don't act, when we don't speak out, when we don't connect, build, and share wherever possible. I know that everyone has felt alone. As we've seen, it does not need to be that way. We need this skate park, but what we need much more importantly is to show the lovely people of Rhinelander and in our community that this is the least we can do, and potentially the beginning of our community leading by example to show that every citizen of our city and even the world is welcome, that we are not alone, and that these challenges of our life don't have to be as scary. We see this as not simply an opportunity to build a skate park, but an opportunity to build opportunity itself for the community to love one another, build connection and strength. Thank you very much.
And you can run for mayor. Neither do I. Caleb Blanky.
Hello. I would first like to say, Anthony, what a beautiful speech. It's going to be hard to follow up on that. Hello, my name is Caleb. I have been a resident of Rhinelander all of my 21 years of life. I am one of the amazing members of the Over It group. I'd just like to start off by saying, when you're younger, your imagination is endless. You can find sticks and boom, they're swords. A rock in your yard is now a canyon overlooking something amazing. You often require a lot less to have fun and enjoy yourself when you're younger. As we mature, we start to separate from those youth activities. The things we once loved to do are no longer attractive to us. Herein lies the problem. There isn't a whole lot of things for our teens to do. As somebody stated before me, we have football, we have sports. Not a lot of kids our age fit in that demographic, so there's nothing for us to do. Oftentimes those kids resort to sitting at home and becoming bums, not accounting for anything. Some of them unfortunately get addicted to drugs or other bad behaviors. A saddening portion of our youth is suffering under the lack of youth development activities. This is where we come in. Here at Over It, our goal is to add activities that directly benefit the youth in our precious town. Our first step is to create a skate park for those who enjoy extreme action sports here and around our town. In doing so, it creates a sanctuary for our youth to learn the required skills for life. They learn determination. These kids learn to push themselves past their fears and doubts about their own selves. They climb their own mountains with the support of themselves and us, the skate community. It will also provide a beautiful mental health advantage to our youth. I'm not exactly sure how to explain this. I don't know if any of you do snowshoeing or even walking in the woods. When you have a board and you put it on the ground and you stand on it and you go, it's like there's nothing else. It's you, the piece of wood underneath you, and just everything going on in your life. It allows us to look into ourselves and understand what is going on, whether that's within ourselves or in our life. It slows things down, at least for me. I cannot speak for those behind me. It allows you to cancel everything out and fix yourself if you need fixing. Like Anthony said before me, there are daunting tasks ahead of us, that may seem daunting at least. It helps us deal with it. It helps us persevere through that. The most beautiful thing about allowing us to have a place, a sanctuary for these things, is it creates this overwhelming ball of care that will, of course, spread throughout the rest of the community. As we all know, a lot of things go around very quickly in this town, whether it's hate or positivity. There's a safety net behind each and every one of us, and all we ask is for your support. We ask that you help us build this sanctuary, not only for us who are still in this town, but for my brothers after me, for Anthony's brother, for Anthony's kids if he chooses to stay here. That is all I have to say.
Gavin Garl.
My name is Gavin Garrow. I have lived in Rhinelander all of my life. I'm 15 years old. And about a year ago, I would say, our group was here and we spoke on this, and it was amazing. It was one of the biggest steps we took at that time, and I think it kind of brought hope. And unfortunately, I believe it's only 2 of us from that original time that have made it today, but everybody is still completely dedicated, and we have gained new members and support. We have gained some traction, and I am very happy to say that Art Start will be, as you said, taking our funding. And so I think I would just like to say thank you for kind of what you have done, especially Tom, for helping us get to where we are now. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, I'm Dylan Bray. I've been here since 2010. I live on 609 Door Ave, and I'm here to voice my support for the group and to get this skate park built. That is all. Thank you.
Aiden Moss.
Hello, my name is Aiden Moss. I live here in Rhinelander, 625 Moen Street. Basically, I want to thank you guys for holding this meeting today. And a little side note, I want to thank the fire department for everything they do with us and the community. But my role here today is not only to accompany my friends, but our action group, but to address some of the importances of the meaning of this action park in progress. As with any community-built attractions, such as like the pickleball court, the dog park that was mentioned, and like children's playgrounds, they hold high value in this community. And as the generations grow, we are open to more activities. For example, children in the city of Rhinelander grow older. There's going to be a point where they don't fit on their favorite swing or their slide at the park, which is what kind of happened to me. So I ventured out and did other things, such as Chris, you know, martial arts. And another one is skateboarding. Sorry, I lost my spot, excuse me. But which is what happened to me. And I know a skate park will add the same amount of value, if not more, to the community, such as any other attraction. It just gives really people a place to feel secure and welcome, a place to grow and develop as a person, and a place to make connections and to hold like fundraisers and events possibly. And Chris, I just want to mention, I liked the Facebook post you posted about maybe like in the future painting on the ramps and stuff. I think that was a really good point to address. But that's basically all I have to say. Thank you.
Michael Gaudioso.
All right.
Come on.
My name
I'm
is
trying.
Michael Gaudioso, and I'm here to represent the skate group tonight. In my opinion, okay, so like everybody growing up in school that joined sports, those sports are a very influential part of their experience of growing up. And it kind of inspires a lot of individual growth when you have a team to work with, people to encourage you in whatever your passion is. And yeah, teamwork is a huge part of growing up. And I know there's people out there that enjoy skateboarding a lot and do not have people to skate with. Either maybe that's because they don't know anybody, or because they don't really have any places to go and collectively hang out and skateboard and talk about it and influence each other to try new things in skateboarding or teach them new tricks or anything like that. And so on top of that, around here, when you try and go and skate like a nice place you see in public, you're gonna get kicked out. That's a given, because that's people's, property. They don't want it getting damaged. And I feel like for those two reasons, people don't want other people, skating on their property and damaging it and stuff like that, that this would be a very, very beneficial thing to have. That's all.
Ava Carilla.
Hi, I'm Ava Carilla. I've lived in Rhinelander forever. Since I've been born.
A little closer to the mic.
I lived in Rhinelander since I'm 15. Lived here my whole life. Like Gavin said, we were in here about a year ago, and I think our group overall has just grown. I think our goals are a lot more put together now, and I think the idea of what we have now is just overall better than what it was, and I think we're ready to come back with more effort, maybe, in a way, I guess. So that's it, I think.
Zoe Johnson.
I'm Zoe Johnson, and I've lived in Rhinelander my whole life. I've never really tried skateboarding, but I've been around the people that do, but I've never given into it because of the reason that there's no point, nowhere to go. And I support everything that they have said. I don't think I could have said it any better. That's about it. Thank you.
Anthony Wayne Stewart Fuller.
Hello, gracious alderpersons and mayor. My name is Anthony Wayne Stewart Fuller, and I would first like to thank you all for extending an open ear to all those who have spoken on behalf of our group tonight. As someone who is no longer part of the Rhinelander area, I now live in Wausau. I did grow up here, and I'm still quite near to the area, and it holds a fairly special place in my heart. However, when I was a young man growing up here in Rhinelander, BMXing, and particularly skateboarding as well, was an activity that I feel I would have enjoyed immensely and had many things to learn from physically, mentally, and morally. A recent study conducted by Instinct Laboratory and Flow Skate Park has shown involvement in skateboarding can reduce stress, increase confidence, and provide escapism. Skateboarding and other extreme sports similar to these are well known for their physical health benefits. But the recent study has shown that individuals who partake in skating stated they do so to reduce boredom, provide them with escapism, help them to build their confidence, and use skateboarding as a healthy coping mechanism for the youth's emotions. Youngsters also attributed skateboarding to helping them feel a sense of achievement when performing new tricks, learning and progressing when getting better on a board, and feeling like they could be themselves when at a skate park, surrounded by others with a similar outlook. I had friends that grew up with me that did these activities and were willing to teach me so many new things in the short amount of time I pursued these sports. Yet, these same friends, teachers, and mentors to me always seemed to get into trouble with the local law enforcement and private property owners, or even worse, put their young bodies in harm's way on public property because they did not have a safe and well-placed youth development zone to call upon when they wanted to teach or learn from others. This fear of being reprimanded or being unsafe caused me to give up any pursuit of these fine sports for the simple fact that I was scared of the repercussions for getting outside and learning a new sport without a safe and accepting space to do so. I would like to express my vehement support of the group for the purpose of this meeting to encourage all the respectable and strong members of both the present and future of our community to support this with the same passion that the many growing members of this group and I have for tomorrow, next year, and generations to come. I once again thank all respectable alderpersons and you, Mayor, for lending an open ear and ask that you strongly considering allowing us to take action for the youth of today and the youth of future generations to come. Thank you.
Kyra Stewart. Kyra Stewart, you signed up to speak.
Okay, Kyra Stewart, Rhinelander. I didn't actually realize I was going to step up here. I'm not a public speaker, so thank you all for being here and just taking this moment to listen to me. With the passing of my son and whatnot, this skate park project, one of his most profound passions. And, you know, these youth here, they need a place to go They don't fit in with the sports, whatever. They need another place to go. And I just ask that you find it somewhere in your heart to help these kids get this project moving and up so that they have that place to go. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Joe, did you want to speak to her, or was that a... Okay. Ashley McLaughlin.
Hello, again, Ashley McLaughlin. I'm becoming quite the frequent flyer in front of you guys, but I am Program and Operations Director at ArtStart. Just wanted to come, after I saw all these kids line up, I figured that I should probably make a short statement too. But ArtStart is interested in exploring this more for the youth in our community. And as we move forward with it, we want to reframe it beyond just a skate park. It will be a designed youth development space. We can get really creative. If we just build a skate park, no offense, Al, like the one that we had in the community before was fantastic. But I want to build it so that it stays here, like so that it is really permanent. Let's build it concrete, so it's low maintenance. ArtStart has connections to skate park designers, artists, make it beautiful, involve the kids in the process so they have ownership of it. And then we can also talk about other issues in the community too. We can bring in rain gardens to capture fresh water. We can talk about wastewater mitigation, maybe pick an area in our community that potentially often floods, or there's water movement in the area that is less than desirable. We want to explore all of the different locations for it and pick the right one, both for the park itself and also to serve the purpose that we want as a community. But we want to throw a stone, have the whole ripple effect, have the community involvement, and the real impact that we need to have with a youth design space. So just wanted to say that. So thank you all again.
Thank you. That's the end of public comment. So if you'd like to leave, because otherwise it's a long meeting to be standing there, you're welcome to, well, yeah. She wants to comment to the community. They're in public comment. She wants to speak back. You're the mayor. I'll allow it.
I just wanted to say I love the passion, and I don't think there's a single alderperson up here who is not in favor of the skate park. We are not your enemy. We definitely want to work with you. We want to find the right space. We want to make this happen. I don't think there's anybody on council who is opposed to this project at all. You have our full support.
Now for mayor's comments. You can leave if you'd like. You really don't have to stay. I'm serious. Yeah, you have no idea. Hey, Jeremy, sit back down. Yeah, thank you. The mayor's comments. Oh. The holidays, decorations downtown area, we've received quite a few comments on how well those look, so I'm just passing that on as we share it. Number 2, the positivity pledge, and there were copies of it over there. I would also challenge anybody who wants to sign up for that and then hand it in at the office. Once again, it is not a proactive toxic positivity, but it has to do with your own self-reflection on how you deal with conflict and how you deal with things and the problems.
You're not very loud.
I'm not that loud today. Usually I'm like really loud. All right. Once again, it has a list, and I would challenge you to read it all the way through, because even the last part of the list is the challenge to hold each other accountable for being positive. I know it's not easy, and we do it all the time where we say things negative and we travel down that path. So having something maybe that would steer us back towards conflict resolution or resolution of any other type with a positive attitude is always encouraging. So look to sign that and turn it in at the clerk's office. And or if there are no more copies, just come to the clerk's office and I'll give one for you to sign. Moving forward, meeting minutes. Approve the November 22nd, 2021 council meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the November 22nd, 2021 council meeting minutes as presented.
Larson, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Reports from the boards, commissions, and committees. These are page 7 and 8 in your packet.
Holt, I will make a motion to approve the reports from boards, committees, and commissions and committees as presented.
Mikulowski, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. We do need to have one of the doors open at least. Yeah. It's an open meeting. All right, moving on. Ordinance, first reading, discussion action items. This was added onto your packet. Discuss and approve ordinance 2021-11A, amending 4.03059.2, possession and use and or the sale of marijuana, hashish, or any form thereof, the substance, non-criminal offense prohibited.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we strike everything below item number 1 so that the ordinance simply reads that we are repealing ordinance 2021-11 as was resolved at our last council meeting unanimously.
Holt, second.
There's a motion, a second. Discussion. Gerald.
Well, I have found this ordinance to be confusing all along, and I've tried several efforts to improve it, and every time we do some changes, it gets more mushy. The only thing I would like to move to amend that her motion to add the words section 4.03.059.02 right after the 2021-11. Since we did ordain it as a codified ordinance, we ought to have that number in there as well. That's what we're repealing.
Understood. Did anybody second his
Holt,
amendment?
I'll second that.
And any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor?
No, I want to say something on what in this amendment.
This is the amendment to add the number to her striking it, and then we'll go back to discussion on the first.
As a point of order, Mr. Mayor, the numbers were never established yet for this ordinance, so it doesn't even exist as a number. It would have been when we redid or updated, it would have gotten that number, but that number has not been given to it yet. It doesn't hurt to say, because your intent is you're taking out the whole concept, but I just want everybody to know that that number had not been assigned to it yet.
Okay, so there's no reason for that amendment because there's no ordinance yet to replace it.
I don't agree with that. We did say.
You may not agree with it, but I'm telling you that's what it is.
Okay, you're saying it's not necessary, but there's nothing wrong with doing it, is there?
That's what I said.
Okay, that's what I heard.
So, for the amendment on the floor, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
No.
That was, did you? Yep. Okay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. And now for the original motion, discussion. Tom.
I understand the want and
to just strike everything below. But I do still feel that there needs to be some form of regulation. I mean, as minor as it is, but the one thing that I actually did like in the resolution was at least having some labeling on the packaging saying, you know, it may seem like a small thing, but
There's already labeling on the packaging. It already exists on the packaging.
I'm going to ask you to address the chair, but I'll call it. No, that's
It's
fine.
on the packaging.
oh, I'm unaware of that because I'm sorry, but I don't.
David, have your hand up.
Thank you. I agree with the sentiment here that we need to discuss some way of having it regulated. Regulation is a constructive and can be a constructive thing because it allows us to set parameters for what we want in our community. However, I think that the right decision here is to simply wholly repeal it, start over with a discussion that begins with agreement about what our goals are, rather than try to continually amend something that was not necessarily a constructive product from the beginning. Repealing it and starting from scratch still would be my goal. And I think from discussion with the mayor, I'm sorry, I'm not addressing you directly, Mr. Mayor. I apologize. But discussion with you, the mayor, there's always been the intention to go back and redo this. I don't think there's a resistance to that. So I'm going to support repealing it in its entirety and then coming back and rewriting for the future.
Gerald.
I basically agree with David on that. I think we've struggled with trying to amend it or change it or come up with different versions now for a month or so, and we haven't really got there yet as far as I'm concerned. So starting over with some idea of what our actual goals are and what's the best way to do it makes sense to me.
Eileen?
My main point in doing this is that I do think there are some alderpersons that might need to research a little more on the product, its effects, its benefits, its potential hazards, and by repealing it, we don't have to have a second hearing because there's nothing to read. And we can go ahead and let our business people get back to business that they've been losing. So by repealing this, we can let them get back to business. There's already Wisconsin statutes in place that regulate THC. So these products are not violating that. Those laws that are already in place. By further restricting how our companies in town do business, we're potentially harming their business. So when we were talking at one point about the monetary, whether we would get the fines, there are no fines collected per this ordinance. It's simply forfeiture. So I see Mr. Sorensen furrowing his brow. There are no fines.
Yes, there are. There are $500 fines. It's what is in section C. The violation of the ordinance shall be a Class C forfeiture as defined by Wisconsin Statute 939.52, parent 3, close parent C, close parent, which is the Wisconsin statute this would adopt that would have a $500 fine.
Okay, I can't see us collecting too many of those fines anyway. So That's my main reasoning behind just repealing this. We agreed as a body at the last city council meeting to repeal this.
David Holt.
Yeah. No, you're good. You're good. I did want to add that for the sake of any future discussion, that one of the key elements that I think is problematic with this is the confusing signals that it has sent our business community, and something to keep in mind as we go about constructing a new product to give some regulatory parameters is that we don't want to hinder our businesses in town when we're talking about such a limited geography for the effects of it, right? We're simply deliberately imposing a barrier, a competitive disadvantage on businesses within the city. I think that's a poor way to go. So I think that's something that to keep in mind as we move forward. Thanks.
Tom.
I am in favor of repealing the whole thing. I just wanted to make sure that there's going to be some sort of follow-up discussion to see if something needs to be added to a regulation or not. But I think a discussion does need to be had after we repeal the ordinance, because obviously there's concerns by the police department. So I think those concerns should at least be discussed at the very minimum. But I think that taking business away from our businesses, the ones that do sell the product, that's also very wrong. So what I'd like to see is these people who own these types of small businesses actually become part of that conversation. Because they obviously have a wealth of knowledge as well on this stuff. So I think by putting everyone together and discussing it like adults, then I think it could be accomplished.
Gerald?
Two questions. One is that something that could be done in a council work session sometime?
Could be. Yeah, that could be one way of doing it.
As a point of parliamentary inquiry, is it true that if we vote this repeal ordinance on the first reading, we don't have to have a second reading?
Either way, if we have a 2/3 vote, we wouldn't have to have that and either way. Real quick to address David and even just some of the confusion that's around this is this was brought to us as a safety issue by our police department, something that I'm assuming, yet I think I'm pretty okay with assuming that we took it on face value as if it was a safety issue. As we looked at it further, understanding that the regulation of it being unique to our city, it took more digestion as to how we would do it or anything else. But that just created more confusion at this point. So at that point, just, it's not pro-business, not pro-business. It's not pro-safety, not pro-safety. And if anything, we're going to err both on the side of the people when it comes to it, at least as far as the nature of our discussion. So is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. Yeah, we all came, we talked about some concerns that we had, and age was one of them. Age is in here. I told you guys, and I sent our attorney some concerns that I had, and one being that some of the products should be kept behind counters. People go into gas stations and stores and buy this stuff, and if it's out on the shelf just for anybody to purchase, it's easier to take for somebody who's not allowed to have the product. The candies, the gummies, whatever you want to call them. I mean, I don't have a problem with people if it is a medical, if they're using it for medical purposes, but I don't see how this ordinance is causing the businesses that sell them to not make a profit if that's what their goal is. Everything in here talks about keeping out of reach of children, asking for ID, which is what we do for other things like liquor and beer. And I agree with everything that's written in here. I don't see how this is stuff that we haven't already talked about. We gave our concerns, and it was put into the ordinance. We have alcohol that used to have to be behind certain areas. We relaxed that, and now in Walmart and other places, so we can be more or less restrictive on what we want to be more or less restrictive on. So I'm in support of the way that this is written. Thank you.
Any further discussion? For the sake of making sure we have either a 2/3 vote or not, I'll have you call roll.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
Ryan Rossing.
No.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Carrie Michalowski.
Nay.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Andrew Larson.
Aye.
Passes with a 2/3 vote. All right, moving on. Public hearing. As a public hearing, I will call out anybody who wants to speak on this. It will be 3 times to meet law. We are having a public hearing on the 2020 annual budget and tax levy. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on the budget? Second notice, this is a time for you to have public input on our annual budget and tax levy. Third notice, this is your opportunity to speak on our annual tax budget and tax levy, annual budget. That being the case, we will close the public hearing on the annual budget and tax levy. Discuss and approve resolution 2021-30B, adoption of the 2022 budget and approval of the tax levy. It's page 11. I'll accept the motion.
Holt, I will go ahead and make a motion to accept the resolution 2021-30B, adoption of the 2022 budget and approval of tax levy.
Do you have a second?
Barnett, second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Gerald?
Well, can we ask some questions about it?
Sure can.
Yeah. On page 12, one question is what the first column of numbers is. Yeah, with the strike through.
With the strike through?
Yeah, as communicated, I'm not sure if this is live. As communicated in the memo that I sent on Friday, there were some slight modifications to the calculations based upon the county's establishment of their tax levy. So the strike-through amounts were previously noticed, and so the numbers to the right of that are the actual final numbers.
Okay,
sorry, that wasn't headed.
What?
A header. It wasn't headed.
Yeah, okay. How much does this differ from the last proposed budget we saw?
The only changes in this, so it was noticed twice in the newspaper. It was noticed in December, and then we did another class notice subsequent to the public hearing this evening. Again, the strike-through amounts are the only changes to the resolution as it's been from when it was originally introduced and when it's been presented tonight.
And then I think, as was mentioned by some people in the audience, there's concern about things being changed through the budget process. And I realize that's the way our legislature does it and the way the Congress does it. And often it's hard to tell what's going on, and yet they do have a process that's fairly well known. If you want something done in the legislature, you got to get it through the Joint Finance Committee. Here we have no transparent process for how things are decided that go into this budget. And so I'm concerned about that. And I guess what I would like, given the discussion tonight from the audience, is there anything in this budget that commits us to any particular action regarding the fire department, the manning of the fire department?
So the question is, what does the staffing level that's associated with this budget proposal? Is that essentially the question? So the
Yes.
staffing level that's in the city's organizational chart that was approved earlier this year, that retains a staffing level across city departments, so that's unchanged.
So that eliminates the assistant chief, but doesn't change anything regarding the deputy chiefs.
Correct. Yeah, there's no, in fact, the deputy chief discussion or references are purely part of contract negotiations and not through any budgetary action. Correct. And understand it
Thank
doesn't
you.
eliminate a position as it stands, because you can always add it back. You just would have to look in the budget for where it would come from. The organizational chart matches to a budget that then comes forward, but that doesn't mean that it can't. We added HR, we added,
I
inspections.
understand, and
Yeah.
people see that and they wonder what's going on. But I don't like. I'm uncomfortable with being in the position of being told, "Oh, we adopted the budget that way, and therefore that precludes the further discussion." So, I'll hold you to that, but I know you won't be around too long.
I would just offer too, we had no less than 6 budget work sessions that were somewhat widely attended by council members, somewhat lightly attended by council members, in which every single department had presented their requests to the body that was present at those meetings. They're all live streamed and available on the city's website if they were taped, just so that there's questions about what was discussed, what was proposed, and what was ultimately incorporated in the budget document resolution tonight. Yeah, some of them we did not have staff to or accommodations to record them, but the ones that were recorded are available. Tom?
Just for clarification, can you tell me the first column and the second column, revenue and expenditures, correct?
Which page are you on, 11?
The back one with the strike-throughs?
Page 12. Yeah, the furthest leftmost column, is the strike-through, was the previous reported numbers. The second column is your revenues, and the third being expenses.
Can you tell me how they correlate? I'm just trying to understand this thoroughly so I can make sure my next question is correct before I ask it.
So, I guess
revenue represents what was taken in.
Yep, right. What's collected.
Right. And expenditure is what they've spent.
That's right. Yep.
So,
or what we anticipate to expend.
What they anticipate to spend. Some of these have over $50,000 more than what the revenue was.
Right. They do carry, so in the case of the TIF districts, they carry a reserve fund balance. So if there's a project plan associated with that, so if in the case of, let me grab an example here, the print pack, or the I would say the airport business park TIF. So that one is concluding, and so by refinancing a number of aspects of that, we actually accelerated some of the expenses, so that way we're going to retire the debt earlier, so we have an interest savings. So you'd have to look at the corresponding budget to actually see the expenses by line to understand really where the expenses are attributed to. But in the case, yeah, you make a good point that in some cases we're spending more than we're collecting, and that's because there's a reserve fund balance in those funds.
Is there a reserve fund balance for the golf course? That's the one I'm specifically speaking of. That's over $50,000.
Yeah, again, that's the adopted budget. Now, there's definitely not a reserve fund, and that's one that has carried a negative fund balance, right? And actuarially, it continues to carry a negative balance and has for some time. Yep. The enterprise funds, I would also offer, are treated differently. In the case of
The utilities, we have to carry a certain amount of reserve in those funds to meet debt obligations. So that's why you see a fairly low expense in the case of like the wastewater utility versus what we're expending out of that. There's debt associated with that.
Gerald.
One more question. At the bottom of page 9, the bottom line there shows apparently a surplus of $371,000 something dollars. What happens to that money?
Which line am I referring to, Gerald?
The very bottom where it says surplus/deficit.
Right. So when we're running through the year-to-date actuals, we're going to project a surplus based upon where our expenditures are at. Now it depends. Now a number of these are not levy-funded areas. So in the case of like the debt service, we had some refinancing benefits this year. That's the projected balance at the end of the year. But in the case of overtime and public safety, for example, that's really an unknown until the end of the year. So we're just running a best case scenario of what we could end the year with.
And if that turns out to be correct,
Yep.
then what happens with that money?
It gets returned to our reserve fund balance, which we have a financial policy in which the city sets thresholds of what's acceptable and how much it can carry and what, sometimes you can pass a budget to applying some of that reserve fund balance if you're trying to offset your tax levy. If your budget's over the allowable tax levy, for example, you could use some of your surplus. It's not advisable to do that consistently, but in a single year, if you're short on revenue or if you had a tax base hit, you could also apply some of the reserve fund balance. But that surplus would be returned to the general fund.
We set that at 25%. We're currently at 20% or 21%, and we started out at 17% 4 years ago. So we were actually in I don't want to say dangerously low, but in a low spot. We've moved up since that time. Can you explain the expenditure restraint and where we get that from too?
Yeah.
As far as what the total of that money is?
Sure. The expenditure restraint program hits the budget in a couple of areas. First of which is the revenue side of the budget. It establishes the maximum amount that the city can budget for in expenditures. And in lieu of not exceeding your budgetary growth year over year, you receive an estate aid payment. And it's a couple $100,000 that we budget on the revenue side of things. Obviously, it governs the expense side of the budget. And there's a formula that the city basically has to comply with that program. So one of the inputs to that program is the Consumer Price Index, CPI. It's being reported a lot right now with inflation and other things. That's one of the inputs at which our budget can grow. And I think as we shared in the workshop, this is one of the more friendly budget years we've had in comparison to the preceding couple. We were able to achieve some budgetary growth throughout the city, where in comparison to last year, we couldn't raise our expenditure level and raise the revenue side. So, you're seeing a property tax increase next year because we can grow the budget slightly. Previously, the budgetary impact growth was much smaller. But that also means our costs are going up, partially due to inflationary costs.
Any other questions? Please call roll.
Andrew Larson,
Aye.
Ryan Rossing,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion carries. Unfinished business from previous council meetings. Discuss update inspection contracts. Zach?
Also referenced in the memo that I sent, Robbie has been visiting with townships that we currently contract with for building inspections, and favorably, all town boards have expressed an interest in renewing agreements with the city. We've also expanded, if you recall, in previous discussion in the actual agreement that was included in the packets previously, accounted for short-term rental, Airbnb, VRBO type inspection activity, as well as some property maintenance inspections. So we're going to be expanding our services to those townships. The idea, and you saw it in the budget, was raising some additional revenue. So we're pleased to share things are going well, and we're anticipating everybody to renew with the city. We've received at least one back already from the town board. So as they get through their meeting rotation this month, we expect the rest to return their agreements.
As there's no action to take, any
Nope,
discussion?
just an update. Purely an update.
No, I know. I was asking him if there's any questions. All right, moving on. Discuss and update the expired lease, Trinity Lutheran Church.
As of the agenda's writing, we anticipated that we would have a full agreement ready for your review. Again, for discussion, Trinity Lutheran has expressed interest in renewing their lease with the city for the property that's adjacent to the police and fire departments on the northwest corner of that property. We have been leasing it to them for their parking lot purposes, and I don't believe at this point there's a reason we wouldn't necessarily extend the lease to them again. We just need to get the updated value from the assessor into that agreement.
Any question?
And I just have, it should say lease, but we have another one with the Rhinelander Truck Center, and we're working through that with them as well.
Discuss update on the traffic signals, loop detection and actuation timing report.
This has appeared on our agendas a few times now, and in the memo I shared with you that the Pelham, Anderson, and Stevens Street intersection did receive some modifications. However, they ended up leaving it pre-timed because two of the approaches did not have loop detection or any sort of camera detection activities there. So we really have a few options. One is to install loop detectors or some form of camera detection at a cost of about $33,000, and there's not a funding source in existence right now. However, that's something we could continue to review, especially if there's a slight surplus. It could be one of the items at the end of the year if we decide to use the surplus for that. So in the interim, we're looking at restoring the timing of that intersection back to what it was before TAPCO was in doing their work, just giving more priority to the Stevens Street through traffic versus the cross traffic. Otherwise, we start to see queuing on Stevens Street at longer periods of time. Of course, the challenge is pedestrians and others having negatively impacted potentially if there's the activity that we'd like to give priority to. But at this point, we'd like to restore it back to the Stevens Street previous timing, so there's less time to the Anderson, Pelham cross streets. I'm not sure if Dan has anything more to add or if there are questions. I know Mark's also worked with me on this as well. Any questions?
Moving on. Discuss update the federal EDA 2021 ARPA tourism grant opportunity.
We'd previously shared that this is a federal grant opportunity through the ARPA stimulus program. It's very aligned with the vision of the Northwood Heel Creek area and bringing in more recreational activities to that project. This sort of gift aside, it's just kind of the planning and the projection of what we'd like to accomplish there. The grant deadline is the 31st of January. We did receive word that the Chicago Regional Office has $25 million to grant. And while there's been interest in the program, there has not been a lot of application activity. So I think that is positive news for us. Should we agree that it's worth investing in the time and resources to get the grant application submitted. At this point in time, we expect the project to be in the range of $2.5 to $5 million. There is a 20% match expectation, and in talking with both the grantee, the grantor, as well as just in some conversation that there likely would be support through donations, would be an eligible expense for city borrowing. But we also can request a waiver for contribution of the 20%, and if we meet certain qualifying criteria, there's a potential that they could waive that. So the subsequent item on the agenda tonight is to solicit permission to solicit the necessary engineering and archaeological review services so we can accomplish the work. We do need engineering design plans at 30% stage in order for the EDA to consider the project. In effect, they want to know what we're going to be anticipating to spend our money on for their thorough review. We tentatively have money both in the administrator and parks budget for professional services. Through the end of the year, we'd have to look at setting those aside into the next budget year. But I would expect those costs to be in the range of 5% of the total project cost. So, we're in short looking for trails, for buildings, potentially like a storage facility, equipment. If we're talking trail building, it would likely be some grooming stuff for winter activities, and then just overall maintenance for the property. So that's the federal grant opportunity. Again, I think it's a real
real once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. EDA, the Economic Development Administration, doesn't generally deal in tourism activities, so I think perhaps if the stars are aligned for us to get an application turned around, that we might be in line for some nice support to get that project underway. Carrie?
Is this ARPA funding only for tourism-based?
This project is, yeah.
This
It's purely in
project
ARPA
is.
tourism. Yep.
But do we still have ARPA funds available?
We do.
to the
We also
city?
have our 400,000, the first disbursement of the 800,000. That's also available. Yep.
And can we use that towards parks?
We can, yep. Provided it meets qualifying criteria and has some connection to COVID, the pandemic and kind of socially distancing and that kind of thing, yeah. And we really haven't, and I guess on that note, while may beg the question, what are we doing with it or what's our plan? Part of it is seeing what the infrastructure bill gives us for resources before we make any commitments of whether or not we're going to spend anything on water infrastructure or PFAS or anything else. So at this point, we're just pausing to see what and when we're going to receive those other resources possibly available to us. It's not a direct grant, it's an application. Yeah. Today it was announced that 143 million will go towards those infrastructure for PFAS. So now divvying through that and dividing through that, because it'll go through the EPA to the DNR and then to us as we move forward. But moving on though, we will seek approval.
1 second.
Oh,
Do we
sorry.
have to apply for that though? Is that a grant or is it just going to get awarded to us?
Good question. Basically, they're filling the programs that are already in existence with some extra cash, is the easiest way to explain it. They're all priority and scored, just like all the street projects, utility projects. Yep. So our hope is that we'll just get accelerated. They'll accelerate the lists of eligible projects to be funded, and then, in effect, we're already in line for it. Gerald?
Yeah, I'm all in favor of the project and applying for grants. I'm just wondering what it has to do with the sheet that was handed out, adding conditions to the gift.
Yeah, I would say that's an item that's separate from the agenda that's been noticed tonight. We can have that conversation offline, or I anticipate that to appear on a future agenda item. I think it was really more communication for the council's benefit.
Yeah, and we have to be very careful about discussing conditions until we've had the negotiations, which are yet to come. This is really putting a cart before a horse, if you understand what I'm saying. And so it's nice, and I understand it, but it's really premature, and we'll be back when we have the negotiations with their legal counsel and myself and so on and so forth.
Maybe I'm not totally clear on what we approved as far as accepting the gift.
Your resolution, yeah, go ahead.
Your resolution was to allow us to go ahead and negotiate the acceptance of a gift. So you're not locked into accepting if there's all kinds of conditions on it that you're not willing to, like, the city has to spend $300,000 every year. I mean, you probably wouldn't buy into that. So that's why I'm trying to say to you, don't get the cart before the horse, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I think as it relates to the item that's on our agenda tonight, it's kind of memorializing again that there's been some discussions behind the scenes, and there's still a great interest by the donor to realize this vision with community partnership. Nothing more? Then we'll we seek to approve soliciting of engineering archaeological. Thank you. Services to support the grant application materials.
Rossley, I want to make a motion to approve soliciting engineering and archaeological services to support the grant application materials.
Larson, second.
It's a motion and a second. Gerald?
Do we have to place a cost on this when we approve it? Do we know the cost?
Well, as I proposed, we will use existing budgetary resources, so if we need to exceed the annual approved budget, we would come back for your approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Introduction to new business. Discuss approved bills and claims in the amount of $1,065,428.75.
Barnett, I make a motion to pay the bills in the amount of $1,065,428.75.
Holt, I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Please call roll.
Ryan Rossing,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Andrew Larson,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Ayes have, motion carries. Discuss and approve resolution 2021-33, non-union working resolution. Zach.
So annually, the City Council is presented with the non-union working resolution. The instrument addresses a couple of things, first of which formally establishes the various wage and employment policies where our non-union handbook is deficient. We all are aware that that's a priority that the city is working to undertake with our new HR professional. And then also attached to that is the wage scale, which is the city's approved compensation system that was performed under the Carlson-Detman wage study back in 2017. And there were some highlighted changes that are associated with that, really speaking to retitling and regrading through some market analysis that's occurred over the course of the year. The 2022 budget included a 1.5% increase for non-union employees, and then you'll notice throughout those various wages that there are also some employees are eligible for step increases. So as you look and you wonder where's the percentages and why is there, it's because of the step increases that employees are eligible for through the compensation plan that the city utilizes. And then finally, I understand that the inclusion of the deputy chiefs in the resolution has created some question and confusion. Certainly not an instrument that would challenge somebody's employment status, exempt, non-exempt, union, non-union, that type of thing. So as I shared with all of you last week, I certainly would find it acceptable if you wish to approve it absent that inclusion. So striking the inclusion of the deputy chiefs. Again, the intent was to memorialize and acknowledge that that item would have to come back before this body. If it's struck, it has no bearing either way in that regard.
Daniel.
I will accept the motion to approve the resolution striking the fire deputy chief line.
Daniel make a motion to approve resolution 2021-33 on the condition of striking the line changing fire deputy chief from union to non-union.
We have a motion.
I will second that motion.
We have a second discussion. Gerald had his hand up.
I'd also like to move to amend it to also strike the second whereas clause, since we do not have a budget committee or any committee that develops this sort of thing.
There's been a motion for an amendment. Do I have a second?
No, the personnel committee.
Yeah.
I'll second. Daniel second that.
We have a second. All those in favor of the amended amendment, sorry.
Aye.
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 No.
Those opposed? That'd be the no. Who do we have for
No.
no's?
No. No.
Just two.
3, carry as well.
Were you no? 3.
Could you
Okay.
request a roll call, please?
Yes, please. Roll call.
On the amendment, jumped on the no with the.
Just for clarity, can we discuss what it was pretty loose, so I think the record is clear.
Absolutely.
What are you taking out of
The second whereas clause that says said committee has established the salary schedule.
that's being removed from the resolution?
Correct.
Thank you.
Or it's added as an amendment to the resolution striking, by striking that also. Anyway,
I guess I don't understand
You're
what.
moving to amend it to remove paragraph, and then once you vote on that, then you can vote on it.
correct. Roll call.
Can we?
Mayor?
Wait a minute.
Can we get some clarification? I mean, we struck, I'm in agreement with striking the deputy fire chiefs from this. What is taking out that whereas accomplishing specifically?
I don't think it should be in there since we don't have a committee and we don't want any committees.
Well, we act as a committee on the whole.
Carrie.
It's just silly to have it there.
Aren't we a committee of the whole, so we are actually a committee?
Point of information, this is not a committee of the whole. That is a different a different
Correct.
constructed body. We simply have two full council meetings.
Correct. Tom?
So
Semantics.
this whereas, I mean, asking our legal counsel, is that correct? Should that be in there? Or shouldn't it be in there? We don't have committees. We have ad hoc committees sometimes, but we don't have an established full-on committee. Is that correct, or?
I'm going to answer that question in two different ways, okay? One way is a whereas paragraph only is supposed to give you direction as to what the resolution is or what the statement is. So it's not that meaningful. But your second answer is, yes, there is no committee. So it could be interpreted as something that's not correct. So removing it is no big deal. It just that I just wanted everyone to know what they were voting on. That's,
Right. No, I appreciate that.
I got it.
Ryan?
Rather than striking that, why can't we just have whereas said city council has established a salary schedule rather than taking it completely out?
That will be established when we pass it. But no further discussion?
When
So we are voting on the amendment to take it out.
Okay.
Please call roll.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Thomas Kelly. Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Andrew Larson.
No.
Ryan Rossing.
No.
David Holt.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
The ayes have it. It is removed. Now back to the original motion.
no, back to the original amendment, which is taking out the reference to the deputy, which
Well,
is the original amendment, as amended.
Back to the motion.
Yeah.
Back to the motion as amended.
As amended. Gerald?
I wondered, just for sake of explanation, item K, IJKL, what is non-union concession leave?
I don't have the resolution in front of me, and I certainly, the clerk or I can share that with you, but essentially back in 2012, I believe this stemmed from Act 10, when collective bargaining rights were abolished for many public sector unions, and there was a one-time, I would call it a payout or acknowledgement, I think, in lieu of what was done as associated with Act 10. But we can get you a copy of that. It just maintains that in effect. It doesn't strike or remove that.
And the other
benefit.
question I have is right below that. How do we know which are salaried employees and which are not? And I know you told me something the other day, but I think the rest of the group ought to hear that too.
So you're asking what the employee status of the
How do
employees?
we know which are salaried employees? and
Well,
which are not?
it's a determination on the Fair Labor Standards Act in terms of who is salaried and exempt and non-exempt. So, and hourly employees. I'm not sure what the relevance is to the wage that's established. All full-time, regular employed people work at 2,080 a year, hours a year, whether they're hourly or, you know, salaried. I mean, I guess I'm not sure really what the root of your question is.
Am I mistaken in looking?
Yeah, I mean, you see there's some asterisks that
Everybody
indicate
that doesn't
full-time.
have an asterisk?
Well, yeah, those are the full-time hourly, right, exactly.
Tom?
So if they're not hourly, they're salaried.
I think that's very well laid out. I caught that just reading through it in the footnotes. First question, there was a motion, was it seconded?
Yes.
It was, okay, I just want to make sure. So, I'm pleased to know that the fire deputy chief will be stricken if we vote that way. But I'm also looking at down below, and I'm just looking for clarification on this. The last two street maintenance workers have absolutely no increase whatsoever. Why is that?
Yeah, good question. So if you look at the attachment, I think actually a couple of you have asked me that. The chart that was established, the 22 proposed scale, they're essentially they're ineligible for an increase. Either they're off the chart based upon their grade of their position, which you'll have to look on that chart to see where they're at in the numbers, where they align. But essentially, they would be viewed above market and off the chart. But everybody, unless they're off the chart, is eligible for a cost of living increase, as well as the commensurate step increases based upon their anniversary dates. Yeah.
Carrie.
Zach, can you explain why the fire chiefs doesn't have a wage increase too for 2022?
Right. So when the chief and I negotiated his offer of employment, we talked about what was an appropriate wage for the position, and the way we settled was essentially offering him the 2022 rate accelerated in 2021. So yeah, it appears there's no increase, but we did move above the market. So he was brought in. The market was 41, I believe, and he was moved 2 steps above the market. Andrew's got a question.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Just looking at this pay chart here, how come when I do the math, I get like all different amounts versus like this, the first one?
Sure.
I mean, like what are we?
What are you missing? A couple things could be at play. It depends on the position. Number one, if they're eligible for a step increase, that's also reflected on here. So they would be getting the 1.5% plus whatever step increase they would be eligible for if it's on or around January 1st. The second point that could be at play is we did regrade a number of positions. So the chart that was highlighted in yellow with all the placement of the grade, we regraded a number of positions based upon supervisors' feedback that we were either below market or we had recruitment challenges, and we adjusted those positions again based upon a market analysis. So that's why you would see. So in the case of like the wastewater treatment operators, they were regraded, as well as the lab assistant. That position was regraded, and so that person then would be eligible for future step increases. Whereas now they're off the chart or at the top end of that spec of the chart.
No other questions?
Call roll.
Call roll.
Could you read back how we're voting here, or like what we're voting for?
Yeah. The motion was to pass the resolution 2021-33 with striking the fire deputy chief line.
As well as the second whereas.
And that was in the Second Amendment, which we already passed.
Okay. Just clarifying.
Question.
I just have one more question. There's no more, as far as the deputy chiefs, there's no more anything else attached to the fire department as far as that would be affected by striking them? Like once we strike the deputy chiefs off, that's it. They're off, correct?
Right, they're not listed on the non-union working resolution.
Okay.
Correct. Yep. There's no other references to those positions in the resolution.
Tom.
Sorry. So by striking that line item, that also does not remove him from the union, correct?
This instrument was never intended, nor does it have the capacity to remove positions and their status within the city. That's another whole other item through negotiations or through some sort of other side letter agreement with the union. Correct.
I just want to make sure I'm clear on how it all is.
Clarification.
Please call roll.
David Holt.
Aye.
Ryan Rossing.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
Andrew Larson.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. C, discuss and approve the mayoral appointments for the First Public Arts Commission.
Holt, I will make a motion to approve the mayoral appointments for the Public Art Commission.
Daniel,
Larson.
second.
Thank you. This has been a long time coming, and I'm glad to see that it's finally up and to be functional. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Discuss and approve personal property tax write-offs from 20 or from 2000 to 2020. This pains me.
Yeah, obviously the period of time that's covered in this is probably draws your attention, as did mine, when we discovered through an analysis and some record keeping and audit work that we've kind of been doing internally through the transition with positions and new people taking on the role, that the city actually hasn't written off personal property tax that's not collectible based upon state statute. So we don't want to be carrying a liability we can't collect legally based upon state statute. So we're asking for your concurrence in the writing off of $56,000 in personal property tax. As you will find in the, I'm not sure what page it is in the packet, 17, that many of those entities are no longer in business, have dissolved. There's also those that are within the collection period under statute of limitations that are also listed because they are dissolved. So things like a Shopco or I'm not sure, there's a handful of other ones on there. So some smaller amounts for the preceding 7 years starting this year, but that would be the full amount. That will have a budgetary impact, but from a financial standpoint, we haven't been at this point really anticipating that revenue for operational purposes, of course, for the last 20 years. So
I'll accept the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve personal property tax write-offs from 2000 to 2020 in the amount of $56,209.44.
Anderson, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'll also add that we have put in a procedure in place to prevent this from happening for the next 20 years. So hopefully we're able to not get behind.
I have a point of information. Does this need to be a roll call?
Yeah, I'm going to ask it to be roll call either way, just because it's going to have a budgetary effect. Please call roll.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Ryan Rossing.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Andrew Larson.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Discuss and approve work change directives 41 through 43 for the 2019 Stevens Street utility and street improvements.
What is the total on this?
On the change order?
Yeah. No. Yeah. And it's...
Yeah, the total's on change order 16.
Right. The change orders are next. This is discussing the change directives.
We're
Correct.
ramping up to the change order.
So the change directives are handled in the change orders then?
Correct.
Okay.
So the first work change directive would be for the elimination of a sanitary sewer structure, a manhole. In the original design, in the existing conditions, there was an existing manhole structure where 2 laterals tied into it. During construction, we were able to tie into both laterals to the main so we could eliminate that structure. However, by the time we discovered that, the contractor had already ordered it and had the manhole on site, and it's a special structure that could not be returned to county. So this is payment to the contractor for that structure. Work change directive 42 is for Pueblo Drive. If you recall, in 2020, Pueblo Drive was added to the contract per change order. At that time, when we initially did Pueblo, it was a rural section, meaning there was no curb and gutter on that. Final payment or pavement was paved this year. After looking at it, discussions with staff, staff felt there could be improvements with concrete curb and gutter, which I agree with. So at that time, we put out an RFI, which is a request for information to the contractor for costs on removing the asphalt curb, putting in concrete curb and gutter. We're able to whittle that down. If you dig into that work change directive, you see the initial price was over 30 grand. The city actually did some work there. The contractor did the removals, poured the curb and gutter. City staff did the asphalt patching and then the base patching, and we were able to knock that down to $17,000.
So that's for curb and gutter on Pueblo Drive. Work change directive 43 is for, this is for water service at 1853 Stevens Street. There had been some issues with this service in 2020 when it was first installed. This year, a year after the fact, there was another leak there. We had assumed it was the same issue, called the contractor in to repair it, thinking it was defective work. It was not contractor's defective work. It was actually on the private side of that water service. So this is for payment to the contractor to come back in and fix that water service for a total of, for an amount of $4,984.35.
So we'll take the motions on the change orders, numbers.
The work change directives?
Yes.
Daniel, make a motion to approve the work change directives 41 through 43 for 2019 Stevens Street utility and street improvements.
Anderson, second.
There's a motion and a second. Questions? Carrie?
On the work order 43, you said that it was, or maybe I'm misunderstanding, but was it the property owner that is the reason why this work order had to?
No, that work order was done because we called the contractor in to do the work.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Discussion and approve change order number 16 for 2019 Stevens Street utility and street improvements.
So this change order 16 is just an accumulation of those last three work change directives. The total of those three work change directives comes to $22,843.84. You can see on here where that increases the amount of change orders on the contract price to $15,105,605.44, and we would recommend approval of the change order.
I move approval of change order 16, the total increase of $22,843.84.
Holt, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please call roll.
Andrew Larson,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Ryan Rossing,
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion carries. Discuss approve change order number 17 for the 2019 Stevens Street utility and streets improvements.
So this change order covers a lot of items. This is basically the final change order for the Stevens Street project. There are 4 items on this change order. The first one is an adjustment of unit prices to the actual quantities. This is a formality per the contract and a requirement of DNR through Clean Water Fund and Safe Drinking Water Fund. If you look through this, if you look through these pages, you'll actually see the bid quantity for each item on the pay request. The original price and quantity, the adjusted price and quantity, which is the actual installed quantity, and that change and how that affects the contract price. If you turn all the way to the end, you will see a total of $394,844.81. This is not an amount that the city has to pay. This is just a accounting issue just to get the contract price right at the end. And I can point that out when we get to the pay request. So like I said, that's just a formality. That $394,000 and change is not an amount that the city will pay on this pay request. Number 2 on this is basically saying that the contract is complete. All the work is done. We're now in the warranty period. There are items that are covered on the warranty from this date. That would be all the work that was completed this year, which is the final layer of asphalt, on the north end of Stevens Street. Striping, any concrete work that they did this year, which would have been repairs of stuff they did last year, and a couple miscellaneous items. That's all covered under the warranty from this period. Also in there, I have pointed out one outstanding issue, which is some trench settlement that we're seeing between Montrose and Monaco. We've been monitoring that. We've been measuring those dips in there. We did it in the spring. We did it in the fall. We're going to monitor it in the spring of next year. So what this does is points that out as a particular item that we're watching that falls under that warranty period. The warranty period for that will start once that corrective action has taken place. So in the spring of 2022, we'll evaluate it. We'll decide what to do with it. And contractor will complete that work. Then the warranty period for that particular work will start at that date of completion. So that's what number 2 is pointing out there. Number 3 is just what I went through with the final quantity adjustment. That's at $394,000. That's just pointing that out again. Number 4 on this change order is basically saying we've extended the final completion date. We've extended that final completion date to June 30th, 2022 to incorporate that trench settlement issue. So we're allowing that contract at that time to correct that action. Any questions on that one?
I will make a motion to approve change order number 17 for 2019 Stevens Street utility and street improvements, the amount of $394,844.81.
It wasn't on.
Anderson, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Gerald?
Do we need to say in the motion that this is the final?
It's documented as the work order, so the work order is a part of the official meeting minutes, so no. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Discuss and approve pay requests, number 18 for Mussins for the 2019 Stevens Street utility street improvements in the amount of $318,421.57.
So this is almost the final pay request. We'll have one more coming this year. This is the final one for all final quantities, which I addressed in change order 17. There's all the final quantities. We're verified with the contractors and subcontractors, and everybody's in agreement with those quantities. So there will no longer be any quantity adjustments on this contract. You can page through this and see all the work that was completed on this. You can also see, and I'd like to point this out, you'll see on the left-hand side on the cover page, you see change order 17 is listed on there as a change order for $394,844.81. However, if you look at the last page, you will notice that's on there as contractor's schedule of values, but is not carried forward over to the right into total completed. So the city's not paying that. It's just an adjustment of that contract price. So this change order incorporates both this pay request incorporates both change order 16 and 17. You'll also notice that this is all work is complete. However, there's $176,000 being held in retainage. That $176,000 is an estimate on the work that would need to be completed to address the trench settlement issues, meaning that's an estimate for a complete mill and overlay of a 4-block area with striping to get everything back the way it needs to be. We have not determined the extent of the work that needs to be completed out there. It may not come to $176,000, but that's what we're anticipating right now, looking at the whole thing. Worst case scenario, what would it cost the city to get that work done. Now, I do want to point out that is a warranty issue. The city will not have to pay for that, but once that work's complete, the retainage will be released.
I will make a motion to approve pay request number 18 from Mussins for 2019 Stevens Street utility and street improvements in the amount of $318,421.57.
Rossing, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please call roll.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Ryan Rossing.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Andrew Larson.
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries.
Mr.
Discuss the
Mayor?
initial special events.
If I may, I'd just like to point one thing out. For the change orders, just to give you guys a quick recap of the project, for the change orders, we had about $1.1 million in change orders. About $800,000 of that was extra work. That was the block of Pinos, the block of Pueblo, and the mill and overlay on Lincoln Street. With all that extra work, we are still anticipating the city will be under budget with the city share. So I thought you'd want to know that, Tom.
Thank you. Discuss initial special events application. This is in your packet. I think I have 64 written down.
Is this a new application? Just wondering why it's being brought to us.
Yeah, so the clerk has taken the lead on this with support from the rest of us to pull together a more streamlined and easier to read and hopefully a little bit easier protocol to administer to. So you can speak to really the desire, but I think as we want to just get your kind of a first blush in front of you all, and secondly, whether or not we want to have repeat unchanged applications come before the council, since historically those would have been to a committee. So that's just really what, at least from my perspective, we're looking for, and Teresa may have some additional feedback as to what she'd like to see.
I think basically we're just looking to make sure that whether you would like to have council approval every year on these events, or if you would like to just have them approved one time and only brought the changes back for approval. Currently, there is no council approval on any of the events.
So take a look at it, Gerald.
I'm still not sure what we're asked to approve. Just the form itself or the procedure?
We're not asking for approval of anything. We're putting the event application in front of you for purely from a policy standpoint. Do you want to see special events? Do you want to approve them annually? Do you want to approve them every time there's a change? We're really just looking for some direction from the council on the policy side of this.
From a public standpoint, how are neighborhoods given advance notice of events? Like, I had no idea there was going to be an Oktoberfest in my neighborhood, up until like about a month beforehand. So when these event requests come in and they're approved, if they're approved simply by the city clerk, how is the general public made aware of this event? And are they given a chance to speak on behalf of perhaps protesting?
Yeah, that's a great question. So all departments get a review of the special events, certainly public safety being more concerned because of traffic and crowds and all that aspect. Right now, so the clerk would be kind of the final approval. She would provide a preliminary approval, I would say. And then as it relates to providing notice to the public, unless there's an explicit requirement for us to tell the public, in our current policy and procedures, we don't have any notification. But there is an expectation of the event organizers to have coordinated some communication, and I don't know explicitly what that requirement is offhand, but maybe you can address it.
There really isn't a requirement. It is very much encouraged for them to speak to their neighbors, to let them know, but there is nothing that explicitly gives us notice that they've notified their neighbors or make it a requirement. So we're trying to put together a policy so there's a clear line as to what needs to be done
I would point out that, and the chief is here too, and he could talk to it, but he and I always look these requests over, and we look at it for safety and whether there should be notice given, simply because that makes the job, he's here to speak, so I'll let him talk.
Almost every public event that's filled out, there's some type of advertising because they want the community to be aware of it. So very seldom is there any event that would take place that is impactful in a neighborhood where somebody doesn't know, because the people want people there. So it's on social media, it could be on Channel 12, it could be in the paper. So they do a really good job. Might be an organization like DRI. So that almost every event, probably the first year that we actually had an event, the Oktoberfest, that was actually on private property, but it spilled over into the city right away, and also the attendance of crowds. We didn't know what to expect. But they also advertised. They had big signs in the yard there. So I don't think there's any event that's a surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody.
My follow-up question then would be, if I had no problem with Oktoberfest, just to put that out there. But if a neighbor did come and say, hey, I just found out there's going to be this event in my neighborhood, I disagree with it for this, that, and the other reason. But if the event coordinator can come back and say, well, I got a permit from the city, at what point is there any kind of, is there a procedure that perhaps someone within the neighborhood or the area could follow in order to, I don't want to say protest, but address the situation and say, hey, I don't think this is a great idea and this is why? Because what I'm saying is right now, somebody decided they were going to have a parade in my, in front of my house, and I don't find out about it until after the permit is issued.
They don't have to fill out a form right now to call the mayor and tell me that they're not great ideas. Just as it stands now, we get a fair amount of those, whether it be whatever happens. That being the case, then if I got these calls, I would go to the department heads that had something to do with it, or parks, and say, listen, this is the discussion, because some of the things are things that happen in our park. So I don't know of a formal complaint, or as far as that goes.
Yeah, the thing I was going to say is that the one that we had this year, we thought the neighbors we told them they had to let the neighbors know. Otherwise, we weren't going to approve it. That was one that they backed out, I think, and just didn't even go ahead and do it, because they knew if they were going to tell their neighbors, they weren't going to. It was a block party, that's what it was. So we're pretty cognizant of the nature of this before it gets approved.
Nothing else? Go ahead and review these applications just to see if there's something you'd like to have on that. We can bring it on to the next agenda as far as whether or not we would want to have that annual review or not, or review these or not. Discussion and approval of Alan Hicks as the agent for Krishna Hotels, 668 West Kemp Street.
Chris? Yeah, I just point out that this is only on the agenda because technically you have to approve it, but understand that we, meaning the chief and the administration, make sure this person is qualified, they have no record, and it's just simply here so that make you aware of it. There should be nothing, if it comes here, that would prohibit, or you should prohibit you from approving this. It's required by state law that they have an agent if they're a corporation or an LLP or an LLC, and that's why it's here. And they're changing in the middle of the year. Otherwise, it would be in July when they normally did it.
Holt, I'll make a motion to approve Alan Hicks as agent for Krishna Hotels, 668 West Kemp Street.
Barnett, second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Discuss, approve the reimbursement of $533.90 for the fire chief candidate's guest flight.
Barnett, I make a motion to approve reimbursement of $533.90 for a fire chief candidate's guest flight.
Henderson, second.
Did you get one? Okay. Any further discussion? Please call roll.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Andrew Larson,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Ryan Rossing.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Discuss and approve the approval of switches from technology management not to exceed $61,162.59.
So while the global budget was scoped and specified within the borrowing for transparency purposes, we'd like to continue to bring back these invoices directly to the council for their approval prior to the purchase of the hardware and obviously the billing from the consultants. So this is one of the components for the IT consolidation project.
Mikulowski, I'll make a motion to approve the approval of switches from technology management not to exceed $61,162.59.
Barnett, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please call roll. Actually, it's already in the budget. Yeah.
Tom
Call roll.
Barnett,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Ryan Rossing,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Andrew Larson.
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carries. Discuss and approve the purchase of a 2021 Ford F-450 Super Cab truck from the Stevens Point Auto Center for brine operations not to exceed $65,700 and necessary title and licensing fees.
In a similar fashion as the IT consolidation, the funding source for these two items is either borrowing or departmental funds. In the case of the second item, I'm not certain if we're going to be able to tag that, but we do have it, both those items included in the budget for the borrowing. Dan certainly can address any questions to the operational side of the brine application. Surprisingly, due to in existence with supply chain issues, we were able to get ourselves a hand on this. We didn't have any responses in time for bid, but we did receive 2 quotes for this, and Stevens Point Auto Center was the lowest apparent bidder on those on that solicitation.
Gerald?
I move that we approve purchase of a 2021 Ford F-450 Super Cab truck from Stevens Point Auto Center for brine operations not to exceed $65,700 plus necessary title and license fees.
We have a motion
Holt, second.
and a second. Any further discussion? Please call roll. Oh, sorry. Andrew?
Was this truck already purchased?
Has not. No, we do have it held.
Oh, you do have it held?
Right.
Okay. Didn't we already approve this?
Well, like I said, through the borrowing, you technically approved it, and at the 6-month work session, we've talked about it. So, I mean, it's definitely had a reading in front of the public a number of times, but this is the actual formal award of the truck bid to them.
Please call roll.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Ryan Rossing,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Andrew Larson,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Ayes have, motion carries. Discuss and approve the purchase of a brine equipment not to exceed $6,282 from Central Equipment of CNY, Inc.
I will move to approve a purchase of brine equipment not to exceed $6,282 from Central Equipment of CNY, Inc.
Anderson, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Tom?
With the purchase of this truck and the equipment, and maybe Dan can speak to this, what is the estimated time of actually utilizing this equipment and the brine?
That's a good question. Right now, Oneida County is building their facility for brine, and they project it to be ready about the beginning or middle of January. We're projecting our truck to be here and this attachment to be ready around the 1st of the year.
Okay. So it's very likely, given our Wisconsin weather, that we could see the effects of how the brine and all that works before
Correct.
the winter's over?
Yep, as soon as it's all put together and we can purchase the material, we'll be applying it. And
Great.
Yep.
Any further questions? Please call roll.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Andrew Larson. Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Ryan Rossing.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Monthly reports from departments.
Daniel, make a motion to accept the monthly reports from departments as presented.
I'm going to hold you up just for a second. I asked Jim Gossage, is Jim here? He's not. Okay. Public service announcement, I was going to ask him. He received a report earlier, and he's not here to report it, so I guess I will withhold. Move with your motion.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Holt, second.
There's a motion and a second. Gerald.
I just wondered, under the street department, whether we should get some kind of report on how the snow removal is going, especially with regard to Lincoln Street that we discussed so much.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
Since we had our first big snowfall, how are we doing on snow removal, especially on Lincoln Street?
Okay, so far we've had I believe about 5 snow events. We have gone down Lincoln Street on 2 occasions, and we have had, I think the first time around, 6 businesses along Lincoln that did not have their snow removed, and I believe the second time around about a dozen. So we will be billing those businesses out now.
And from our attorney, who also had his report as an add-on, just so you know.
Yeah, it's just a very, very, very positive for the city. When we got here this evening, we found out that in the United States District Court for the Western District of Wisconsin, a decision has been handed down in the case of Timothy Kingman versus Chris Frederickson, Andrew Larson, David Holtz, Steve Sauer, Ryan Rossing, Daniel Gilden, the city of Rhinelander. The court in that case, we had moved for summary judgment, which means a dismissal of the case, and the court has found and granted dismissal on summary judgment being granted in the defendant's favor. So subject to any appeal of that decision, that case has been resolved in the favor of the city and the named defendants on summary judgment, which is a tremendous accomplishment and is going to save the city a lot of money and a lot of our citizens some money. So I just wanted to add that as a positive note to tonight's meeting.
Any further discussion?
That's a tough one to follow, but I just want to acknowledge and welcome Rachel Pearson, our new HR manager, to the city. This is the first opportunity that Rachel's been introduced to the council. Rachel, if you would just stand up so that way the council members can see you. Welcome. And then finally, on the fundraising for the Hodag Park stage, today we received word of another grant application. We have filed for another $10,000, came through from Wisconsin Public Service. So we're at 85% of fundraising for that project. So we're still waiting for a few more outstanding requests, but that's going very well.
Gerald?
I just had a question as far as the agenda. Was there supposed to be something about the skateboard park on the agenda?
No, not yet. Look for it on the next agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. If necessary, to convene into closed session pursuant upon Wisconsin State Statute, Section 19.851 CE, considering employment and promotion, compensation, and performance evaluation of the data of any public employee in which the governing body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, deliberating on negotiations or purchasing public properties and or investing in public funds or conducting other specific public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, discussion of the golf course management, discussion of the status of the contract negotiations with Rhinelander Professional Police Association Local 38 and IAFF Local 1028.
Holt, I will make a motion to go into closed session for the above stated purpose.
Barnett, second.
Please call roll.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Ryan Rossing,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Andrew Larson.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, before we go into closed session, can we discuss future agenda items? Because usually when we come back from closed session, we don't have a chance to address those before we're dismissed.
Sure.
Okay, I have 3 items I would like to see.
Wait.
Can I not?
You just voted to go into closed session.
Because he moved so fast.
You can't.
Well, then when we come back, I request an opportunity to address future agenda items.
Yeah,
Absolutely, it's there.
sorry.
So we return to open session with nothing to report from closed session. Future agenda items, requests. Eileen, Daniel.
I have 3 items I'd like to see addressed. 1, determine a parks area that to be set aside for the skate park. Discuss revising the organizational chart to reinstate the assistant chief position. Discuss change of newspaper of record from the River News to the Star Journal.
Andrew.
Yeah, I would like to bring up the holiday lighting. It's very nice and all, but maybe when we light the tree, we should turn the whole downtown on, not have the downtown on before we light the tree. Just the timing. They're beautiful. I'm not.
Gotcha.
Just kind of when you turn the tree on, you just all the lights come on versus having lights on and then.
Thank you. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, no lighting it on fire.
With that, we've reached the end of our agenda, so we are adjourned.